This video is called Men Are Slowly Giving Up and Nobody Cares. To both, yes. To both, yes. Let's see what Moon will talk about. Let's see. Also, Pedro Pascal, what is he doing here? Why is he crying?
Increasingly, more and more men are giving up. Giving up on relationships, careers, and society as a whole. Resentment.
Yeah, so relationships, I think about like 30% of like men are in relationships. I could be wrong, and like about half of all women, a little over half of all women are in relationships. It's really weird. Seems like women are sharing men. I can confirm that, obviously. Yeah, there is way more women who graduate from like colleges and stuff, and like even here, I look at like boys in like even like primary schools. Boys are doing horrendously bad. It is almost comical. uh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Is growing, unemployment is becoming rampant, and keeping your head above water seems almost impossible for many men today. This is leading to more men than ever dropping out of society entirely. And it's not just that, men are becoming infantilized. With terms like adulting now becoming normal, it's clear that something ugly is happening that needs to be addressed. We live in such a strained, unnatural environment that is bound to start to wear on society, but men in particular are battling to keep up and are slowly giving up. Giving up on dreams, giving up on trying, and giving up on doing anything constructive.
I think a lot of that comes from also the economy. Because let's be real, what women want, like when it comes to like current day, stable job, a lot of money, a successful career, and like women can get all of those like pretty easy, a lot easier nowadays, like even a little easier than men can. And like when I look at like a lot of the men, what they want pretty much is they want the family, they can get that. They want the house, they can get that because like money. A lot of stuff that comes from that is thanks to the economy. Now, not only men are feeling like this, women are obviously feeling like this as well. But like there's a lot of like like a lot of support coming to like the ladies that like can't reach that. And there is not really any support to men that can't reach that. Is what I think a current problem is what I would say is that there's not really that much sympathy for failing men. Is what I'm trying to get at pretty much.
Large part, it's really not their fault, as this trend isn't just a personal struggle, but a societal issue that we must urgently address. So why is this happening? And why has it gotten so bad in 2024? On the surface, it's a long and complicated story. Life has never been simple for any human, and objectively speaking, for men in the West today, it's never been better. We have all the technology we need, food delivered to your door with the tap of a finger, dating readily available to anyone with a simple swipe, any products, items, or experiences that you want.
Yeah, but that stuff is super hollow. Like, that stuff is super hollow. Also, dating apps, you can take those and throw them into the garbage. They don't do anything for like the general, like the normal dude. Especially since these apps are dying. These apps are genuinely dying. There's less and less traction on these apps. I'm like, great, wow. I can order whatever and like get it like the next day. Wow, great. Buy product, consume product, more good, I guess.
Can be had with the tap of your phone. But over time, all of these comforts of life destroys the importance and necessity of struggle. Without any value placed on higher goals, where there just is no reason to care, means there's no reason for people to properly live or have the will to achieve greatness. Which is probably why 40% of young men aged 18 to 45, where there just is no reason to care, means there's no reason for people to
I don't like working, I don't care for friendships or whatever, okay? I want to die, but I'm not suicidal. I want to die, just don't want to exist.
To properly live, or have the
I'm so unattractive that I want to kill myself.
Will to achieve greatness, which...
I'm committing, what, let me go a little bit back.
means there's
A
no
little bit
reason
back. I
for
want to
people
read the
to
last
properly
one.
live or have the will to achieve
I'm committing suicide. My suicide post that I'm okay. Wow. Wow.
greatness, which is probably why 40% of young men aged 18 to 45 meet the criteria for depression, and 49% of 18 to 23-year-olds
I might fall under the 45% here, 44% here. I've beat the 49% at least, so I'm in the 51% at least.
have had a thought of passing themselves in the past 2 weeks alone. And we're seeing the symptoms of this problem everywhere. The sapping away of our vision and ambition permeates in all aspects of modern society today. Our culture, architecture, relationships, bodies and minds. Past civilizations before us have always placed their emphasis on beauty, wisdom and logic for all the population to see, with great town squares, bustling with art, life and community. These things were placed above all else as the bedrock of their societies, laying out a code of honor and struggle in its people to achieve greatness. Comforts were shown in art and culture, but as an aspiration for achieving something great, for following your mastery. But today our cities are mostly devoid of all of this character, and instead they're marked out by
I think a lot of those problems of like killing ambition, I think schools do a wonderful job at killing your ambition and like killing your dreams. Cause I'll be honest, I'm gonna be completely honest. Teaching somebody something useless that they do not need, instead of supporting them in one of your talents, one of the things where they truly accelerate. I think supporting young people in nowadays in the things that they do well, things that they accelerate in, would be a much better idea than, you know, teaching somebody something that they do not need. I think depending on like what what your like as what you graduate, like if you graduate from college, high school, whatever, I think gatekeeping jobs is I think a problem, because here jobs are gatekept. Like you can't just do like apply for anything like that you want. Unfortunately, I don't know how it is in the United States. I can't tell. But yeah, I think gatekeeping jobs based on what like somebody like has like achieved in school might be a bad idea more and more.
the most cost-efficient, bland and sterile designs to facilitate a simpler self-motivated purpose. It's why people flock all over the world to a handful of remaining cities that retain their centuries-old charm to feel and experience the character.
You just have to look at, and that's what I realized, you just have to look at like first graders. I'm talking here in Germany. You just have to look at like first graders when they're like, for the first few weeks, they're like really happy to be in school with like making new friends, like friends. Come back like a year later, and like they do no longer want to go to school anymore. They are done with school, and I mean like genuinely done with school. It is interesting to see.
Bygone societies that were motivated by higher ideals. Ideals greater than our modern two-dimensional ways of thinking. With a prioritization of comfort, lust and opulence, and flashy materialism over individual excellence and greater community, we're now reeling in the aftermath, becoming instead a generation of mandated mediocrity. And does this explain why men today seem to struggle more than ever while seemingly having more than ever? America in particular is not actually in a recession. In fact, on paper, the economy looks like the
because more doesn't mean good. More just doesn't mean good. That's just how it is. Having more doesn't mean that you like having more. If like it's not worth anything.
The best it's been in a while. Unemployment has dropped, GDP is up, but what the people are actually experiencing is a completely different story. We can see this in a study by the University of Michigan on consumer sentiments, which gathers data based on how consumers feel about the current state of finances. In 2022, it dropped to an all-time low. Prices of our average daily needs like gas and food have increased in unbearable percentages. In contrast, salary increases do not match, putting a high strain on budgets.
Inflation is showing no signs of slowing down as Americans pay over a
Yeah, and it's interesting to see how all these politicians want to push to like work for workers to get paid more, when the right thing to do would be to lower taxes. Like, here in Germany, they pushed the minimum wage. The only thing it effectively did was push the grocery prices up, and like the prices for gas and everything, because like having more money doesn't help when everything gets just like more expensive because of that.
$1,000 a month more on the same essentials we were buying 3 years ago. Nothing's changed but price. The latest consumer price index for March showing basic necessities.
Also,
like
it wouldn't be as bad if those supermarkets and stuff, like those people and like everything else, actually went ahead and used the actual price of that product instead of using their weird psychology. Like, something could be like 166. They will push it up to 199 because it's psychologically better than 166.
Food, housing, and gas are all continuing to cripple Americans' wallets with higher prices.
Our wages are actually down against inflation since Biden took office. So not only are prices soaring, but, you know...
And one interesting thing here is, like, here in Germany, they are pushing for electric cars. The problem is, nobody is buying those electric cars. Because the energy prices is too high, and the cars are too expensive.
Our wages, at least if you measure hourly wages, are not keeping up at all.
Keeping your head above water has become the new normal instead of owning a home with a white picket fence. The rich are becoming richer and the poor are becoming poorer, with the middle class disintegrating completely.
Yeah, a story as old as civilization. The thing is that taxing those richer people is also not effective, because they can just either leave the country, which in this case, a lot of those rich people also have companies, which means they also take workplaces with them if they leave. So you can't tax them. Also, like, I think, like, taxing the rich, like, they're already, like, paying more taxes than everyone else. It doesn't matter if you tax them even more.
All the knowledge of the past of just going to college, getting a job, and buying a home immediately is just completely irrelevant for anyone working and living in 2024. The universities have skyrocketed in prices to absurd levels. The housing market is in a complete giant bubble. Everyone's sending out job applications
And it will pop. The housing bubble, give it time, the housing bubble, it will pop. Because nobody's buying houses. It will pop.
All while using these automated testing systems, applying up to 100 jobs a day and still not getting anywhere. All the while major companies repeatedly tell us that they can't find any workers for their companies. And the results of this are clear. People are drifting towards more unfulfilling jobs, or just not even having a job at all. While the rich buy up resources, real estate...
that's here the case. I think how would you describe it here in Germany? It's called citizen money. Pretty much, if you like word for word translate it, would be called citizen money, and pretty much it's more sustainable than having a job, because you get your rent paid. Yeah, you heard that right. You get your rent paid. If you have like a rent of like 600 euros, the state will pay that for you, and then you get like additional money. Just like buy groceries, support yourself. There's a lot of people who like realize that if they quit their job, they are just better off, and then they start to depend on the state. That's how bad it has gotten here. We had something similar, but that was much more like akin to like unemployment, which if you didn't like also go to like meetings to find a job, you won't get any money, so you have to actually at least do something.
And everything that used to be the cornerstones of the middle class, that is now just an investment hidden through an offshore bank account for some giant investment fund.
Basically what they want to do is create a nation of renters. BlackRock coming in and giving them more money than the house is worth.
How much more do they give them?
They can give them, 30% above.
Really?
Which is money.
And then they just
it's
lease those
BlackRock.
homes out.
And they lease them out. It's part of this idea that
The United States need to get BlackRock out of the housing system. They should not be able to interact with the housing system whatsoever. And well, I do hope that whoever president is gonna be, does that. However, I don't think that Kamala Harris would do that, to be fair.
home ownership and automobile ownership and all of these things, these legacy systems that people want to get rid of. And they go, rent a house, use Uber, Lyft, whatever. You know, you don't need to own. What is owning?
You will own nothing, and you will be happy. Klaus Schwab, from the World Economic Forum.
Do for you. That's that famous article, you'll own nothing and be happy.
Right.
See?
And because of this, all saving plans for regular people are halted because living paycheck to paycheck means there just isn't enough for a savings plan. And whilst there is still some hope to dig your way out, for most this does begin a damaged path. People end up working in a job that's not in their field, something that they hate to do every day, and eliminates the experience they need for the job in their field. And so even the experience they are getting is just completely useless for getting back on track. In effect, their now entry-level position is further deviating them from becoming lawyers, psychologists, or whichever career path they studied for. And if the middle class is experiencing this, then the lower earners are feeling this even more.
We are at the real shortage of doctors. Like a real shortage of doctors. We are at the shortage of teachers. Because people don't want to do these jobs anymore. Funnily enough, a lot of like students who want to become teachers, they quit. It's insane.
The jobs they once had a chance of landing now go to the middle class, while they get hit a bump lower, which is putting millions of people in dire straits. They face working twice as hard for minimum wage, juggling between jobs, partaking in the gig economy with absolutely no security, all with an extreme pressure to keep up with daily expenses in a completely overpriced megacity. And the truth is, both middle and lower earners are now taking a huge hit to their egos. They feel disrespected through no fault of their own, as no man wants to feel like a failure. They don't want to feel like they're not providing or on their destiny. Imagine putting in the hours and effort to get a degree and then having to take a job that's not even within the field you studied for. Well, this is just
Yeah, I've seen a couple of like videos of like freshly graduated people not being able to find, like with a degree and stuff, not being able to find a job. It's insane.
regular life for most people nowadays. It's making men feel incredibly depressed and isolated. They watch all this stuff on social media, they see people flexing the Rolexes on their Instagram stories. Meanwhile, they're struggling to survive, living a life they absolutely hate. And when friends and family ask about it, they suffer the humiliation of explaining why they had to take what was available. Even though it isn't humiliating at all, and they're doing what they can to survive, it definitely takes a huge effect on their mental health. Especially as it wasn't that long ago, where it was actually normal to enter the workforce with a mentor who would show you the ropes and encourage you and push you to learn more. Starting at the bottom didn't seem so bad because there was an opportunity to grow and reap more rewards, but this imperative step is slowly slipping away. Companies of prestige have forgotten the generation with no experience, and for many companies this is what
why inexperienced workers can get entry-level jobs, because they already want you to have experience before even being able to work. Like I've seen a couple of times where people like some job thingies for like entry level jobs being like required work experience. I'm like, I'm new to the job market. This is an entry level job. How am I supposed to get work experience if I can't work?
want. This is actually the ideal scenario, where they have people so desperate, so in need of experience, that they can treat their workers like absolute trash. Since the 1980s, testosterone levels have dropped more than 50%, and yet we're told to ignore it. Why? Because there's a coordinated effort to suppress masculinity and turn men into something they were never meant to be. This decline is no accident. We're constantly exposed to harmful chemicals in our food and everyday products.
Yeah, I think I don't know how it's in the United States. I've heard that food is genuinely ew. Like from like a chemical standpoint, it is genuinely disgusting as far as I'm aware. It's not that much better here, and it has gotten worse from like my childhood to now here in Germany as well. Well, like, this food is just like super garbage. The water is super garbage. Uh, so yeah, I think a lot of health problems come from our food because like super highly processed and stuff. Um, I think also there is a natural reason for the decline of testosterone in men because we don't need to physically work that hard anymore, so obviously it makes sense that that would go down. um Obviously I think there are some unhealthy behaviors that probably contribute to that.
Bombarded with estrogenic chemicals from plastics, junk food, and sedentary lifestyles, which is why testosterone levels have been declining for decades, with a 17% drop among 60-year-olds in 2004 compared to 1987. Sperm
60-year-old men in 2024 had testosterone levels 17% lower than those of a 60-year-old in 1987. Okay.
count and strength in men are also decreasing exponentially, with a 32.5% decrease in mean sperm concentration in the last 50 years. But here's the good news, there are ways to fight back, and one of the most effective solutions that I found is our sponsor Black Forest's Testosterone with Tonkat Ali. This supplement is packed with two of the most powerful natural testosterone boosters available. Testosterone is a natural anabolic compound that helps increase muscle growth, boost
I don't think so.
correctly. So hurry and take advantage of this amazing 48-hour promo and support me alongside.
I don't think so.
Transport costs to their job, depending on the amount, could take a huge chunk of their salary, so that at the end of the day, they can only pay for rent or food and not both. A government grant could replace their salaries, and they earn more or less the same amount.
What's also helping to pay the bills is, as I said, the US government in particular.
I think you don't understand how bad some things are, in fact. In Berlin, young women are prostituting themselves to have a chance, not guaranteed, to have a chance at an apartment. That's how financially bad it has gotten. And like how bad, like just to get like the chance of an affordable apartment, not just an apartment in general, but an affordable apartment, it has gotten bad.
Particular, our disability programs for people who are unable to work. Those programs seem to have morphed away from their original humane intention and now seem to provide an alternative income source to regular employment for several millions, for millions and millions of these guys.
If a job doesn't support your basic needs of a home, food, and transport, it wears thin in justifying the effort for this job, especially if you're not getting any experience. And in most cases, if you go into the gig economy, absolutely no security either.
Yeah.
All for minimum wage. There's even a new term called quietly quitting.
I'm gonna simply put it like this: the times of stable employment are over. You just find the one who pays the best, and if they start paying less, you look for the next one who pays more. That's how it has turned out now. Oh, quiet quitting, yeah. Pretty much doing the minimum for required for a job, not putting any extra time, effort, or enthusiasm. Yeah, a lot of people doing that.
Where you do the bare minimum of your job to the point that you're almost rendered useless and you get fired or simply quit. The fact that this term even exists shows that attention is desperately needed to solve this problem. And while this is happening, it's becoming more and more common for both partners in a household to be living the same life, or even with most males' partners actually being the breadwinner. And whilst this isn't necessarily a problem at all, it is leading to some weird modern problems in the household. Men with families are actually switching their roles with their wives, except they're not actually doing what their wives would do if they were to stay at home.
When you look at what I guess in Britain is called NEET, N-E-E-T, do you say that also in Australia, neither employed nor in education or training? When you look at that huge group of well over 6 million prime age men, the story they're telling about their lives is really pretty devastating. It's pretty distressing. They basically don't do civil society. There's almost no worship. almost no volunteering, almost no charitable work. They've got a lot of time on their hands, but they report doing strangely little help around the home or help with other people at home.
Now, me personally, when I quit my apprenticeship, I was doing a lot more around the house, like in return. Because if I can provide monetarily, let me at least contribute physically to the household. But yeah, these men also don't, these young men also don't do that anymore. What's the point, pretty much?
Because of the situation, some men may feel a sense of worthlessness and resentment. Some men might take an hour to clean up the house and fetch the kids, but the rest of the day they sleep or play games. In some cases, the wives work and then come home to finish the chores their husbands were meant to do but didn't. And whilst this might cause huge marriage problems, it still feels better off to the husbands. If asked what they do for a living, saying they're on a break or working on a project beats the humiliation of saying they work at McDonald's with a useless degree on their back. Men without families have nothing to lose, so they stop working because no woman would even want them anyway. They can't afford to date, they can't afford a family, and
yeah, I think that's a huge problem. Because I know a lot of men that would love a partner, that would love a family, but they simply can't afford it, and yeah. I also fall into that category. I can't afford a partner, also.
Since their own families are supportive, it somehow justifies them giving up and staying at home, rather than facing these societal problems head on. With prices rising, getting hired becoming harder and harder by the day, and inequality becoming rampant within society, most men are just deciding to give up, because instead of facing the hardships of having a job, it just seems so much easier to escape, whether it be terminally being online, playing video games all day, or hiding behind doing chores at home to show they still have a purpose and are doing their best. The point being that for many men in 2024, if they're gonna be disrespected and feel worthless, they may as well choose the easy way out than a battle. If respect had a currency on how it would affect your life directly, you would see a different picture. A man with a job with high pressure, long hours, and doing something that makes him feel degraded would be worth say $100, but staying at home playing games and escaping, all while being with the people he loves, is probably worth $200 because of how it affects him. This explains why more and more men are deciding to drop out of society rather than face it head on, as it just seems to be the easier path. If it's a choice between two paths, one that offers little satisfaction while the other provides comfort, it's easy to see why men are going this route.
Yeah. Understandable. I completely understand this. I couldn't work at that apprenticeship. It pissed me off. I went into this job. It pissed me off. I left the place. It pissed me even more. I was even more pissed off, in a sense. So I already got annoyed into it, and it was visible. I was visibly annoyed. I left also visibly annoyed, even more visibly annoyed.
But the thing is, this is a terrible mistake, and this is creating problems that we've never seen before. If there is no emphasis or any facilitation of the need to aspire to something greater and the game seems rigged to most who are playing it, it's hardly a surprise record numbers of men are dropping out.
The game is rigged, and we all know the riggers.
The problem is that there's a huge group of men, roughly about 7 million in America between the ages of 25 and 55, who are not working and are actively not looking for work. Now, COVID certainly had a hand in accelerating these figures. One question posed to these dropouts was how many of these men were on pain medication, and almost half of these men admitted to taking pain medication daily. And aside from those who desperately need it, these figures could indicate that men are aimlessly numbing themselves to their new reality. And this is great for society, as people don't have to deal with this huge problem. And what's even more shocking is that 40% of these men do have some kind of degree.
What sort of men are in this group? Demographically, education, family structure, ethnicity, who makes up this group?
Surprisingly large, representation of guys with college or even college degrees. 40% of this group has at least some college, and as I recall, about a fifth or a sixth are college grads.
The decision to be in this state is closely related to changing times. We've already discussed the effects of brain rot in another upload, which disabled problem solving in Generation Z and has already presented problems in finding jobs. They are quick to quit at the first difficult task and move on to find something else, but what happens when options run dry and they find themselves simply stuck in limbo? Giving up seems to be the next step, and accepting that is easy when they're discouraged by the situation.
Again, I completely feel understood by this video. Kind of weird. Feels kind of weird, I have to admit. But yeah, This happens. A lot of people that like graduate from college, they go straight into the unemployment line.
Working off of surveys, the data compiled indicates that these men are not only not working, but they're cutting themselves off from their communities, or there's no incentivization for them to even have any community in the first place. They're hiding out because going out would mean meeting new people who might oppose their lifestyles. It makes it uncomfortable. Why leave when you can just aimlessly watch brain rot content and numb yourself with weed or pain medication and stay inside, in the warm comfort of home? And any sexual needs you have can be satisfied with pixels on a screen. This lifestyle is increasingly becoming more and more normal for men in the West. But what's important to note is that men don't want to be this way. It's a horrible lifestyle, it's depressing, it's atomizing.
Yeah, and a lot of men leave the West and go to Asia to find a partner, to start a new life. The passport bros, they exist.
What this really is just a coping mechanism or a form of self-defense against a society that's becoming increasingly hostile to these men. Up until recently, the problem has been invisible. These figures weren't shown in any statistics or surveys because they slipped through the cracks until very recently. So why did they slip through the cracks? Well, it's easy to see. They simply don't fit the victim criteria. Some have degrees, they're in the prime of their lives, and it was their choice to quit. It's easily overlooked and only comes to light as the numbers rise. Nicholas Upstart wrote a book called Men Without Work, and has since exposed and addressed the problems in his book. He says he is trained to look for hidden in plain sight problems, which is how he stumbled upon this issue. You see, these men are not causing trouble, at least for now, and they don't seem to be drawing any attention to themselves. On the contrary, they keep to themselves. So surveys and statistics just don't include them at all.
The thing is, they're not causing any problems now, but when they lose the last bit of purpose that they might hold, I consider a man who has nothing to lose dangerous. A lot of the men that commit horrible atrocities are men with nothing to lose. They're either men who have nothing to lose or men who have everything to lose. It really depends. But a lot of the stuff that like the bad stuff that has been committed, shootings, whatever, was committed by men who really had nothing to lose.
They don't even register on the scale, and people in society think this is a joke issue. And it's also reasonable to conclude that some of these men may work, but in the underground economy. Work like formal cash jobs, or even shady legal ways of making money. But of course, this is just a minor portion of these men. We need to address the problem head on. How is the situation getting this bad? These men have completely lost their purpose in life. All of their duty, their hopes, their responsibilities, their own dignity and value. It's being completely decimated at the moment. And we're seeing this with the form of radicalization online, growing hatred and division, and a general apathy towards society as a whole. And the longer this is ignored, the harder it's going to be addressed down the line. More men today than ever feel disconnected, disillusioned, and left behind by a world that seems increasingly indifferent to their struggles. While GDP numbers and employment stats may sound like an easy, good solution on paper, especially to government bureaucracies, it will
Oh, I didn't know our neighbor Luxembourg is doing that well.
never really fix the reality of the situation for normal people. The real challenge we face today in the West is to find purpose and meaning again, to have any reason to even want to participate and achieve greatness in society. We should focus on creating environments where people can thrive, where beauty, philosophy, and higher noble pursuits are
I think that to get these men out of this, is, well, the video is almost over, I can explain
actively
it later.
encouraged by the cities and countries that we inhabit, which would give millions of men a reason to care again.
So, yeah, that's pretty much the end of the video. So what I think, to get these men out of like the way that they're living, you have to teach them that there's something that is achievable. You have to give them a reason to achieve something. You start with, like, society should start with like slow steps to make them feel, because the problem is, like, you can't send these men to therapy because the therapy wouldn't solve anything. Because a lot of these men feel like they don't have the means or the ability to achieve anything. So what you would need to do is you would need to show them small ways, small things to achieve, so they can slowly build up the trust in themselves and how to achieve what they want to achieve. That's how I got out of this. I got small things to achieve every single day, bigger and bigger, and basically I got my reason to live back. Pretty much is how I would put it. But yeah, that's a good video. That was a good video. Yeah, 100%. I can relate to that video very, very much. Very much.